If you're watching this, chances are you are a finance influencer and our brand team has been in touch with you to work on your campaign. I want to give you a bit of a background about the company, our mission, this campaign, and more importantly, where do you fit in? The story of Chatwise goes back a few years. It has three distinct phases. First phase, where I was working in the city. I'm a chartered accountant like many of you, and my role was to calculate the value of a share. I call it equity analysis. My focus was on infrastructure companies, but I was interested in social media companies. I had shares of Facebook, I attended various investor meetings, I was part of various communities. So one thing which is quite well known in the community, every user on Instagram adds value to the company, which gets captured by the share price. The value is about $300. One way to think about it is, imagine a new large city joins Instagram and all of its residents start using the app, 1 million people. Then the value of the company and shares will go up by $300 million. Now, if you think about it, word over, how many people are joining the app? Majority of the value being added to Instagram actually comes from India. India is the biggest market for Instagram. And there are countries like Indonesia, Nigeria, Brazil, where millions of people are joining, an insane amount of wealth is being created. But most of that gets channeled in to a few investors in New York, in those tall buildings, who hold and control all the wealth. Some people in our group called it the new word imperialism. The question is, how do you solve it? Now, this is where the second phase starts, when a close friend of mine, school time friend, Abhijit, moves to London. Now, a lot of you will relate to him or somebody like him. You know, Abhijit, if I remind you of your school time, think about the person who was best in physics, chemistry, and who did really well at school in science subjects, and after that he went to an engineering college, a premier college in India. And if you've seen the film Three Idiots, he's the Rancho in the film, who is there really because he loves engineering. So Rancho in this film, he finishes his college, goes to Korea. He works for Samsung a few years, then he goes to US, works for tech firms, and he moves to London, and we meet for dinner, and after a few drinks, I throw the question, how does somebody build a new social network? And you see, ranchos of this world, they want to solve big problems. And I explained him the problem, he got it, and over the next few weeks and months, I started to get emails, messages. We would meet up on pizza just to discuss this. And he concluded, with the advancement of technologies around cloud and servers, it's quite doable, but we need a lot of money. And then I go to speak to an investor. I remember him saying, even if we build one, how would you convince people when all their friends are on Instagram? Why would anybody move there? And I said, we give them a piece of the company. We give them the share. We promise that if he funds the company, we would give most to the world. 60% of the company sits in a trust fund. We will come back to that. But that brings me to the third phase. We've got money in the bank. We have Rancho secured. We start hiring developers. We speak to people in the UK, here in Cambridge, where I live. We spoke to people in US, people leaving Twitter, other social networks. And motivations weren't right. The expectations were too much. So we went back to what we knew the best. Went to India. What Rancho knew the best, and he designed coding hackathons in engineering colleges. For those of you laymen like me, coding hackathons are competitions where young minds compete to code. We pick the top performers, and I guess in his mind, he was building his school. And I'm so pleased we did that. Just look at our app. We've got few young brains, highly passionate. Look what they've built. Our platform is scalable to 100 million plus users as soon as possible. And now we're ready for the next stage to invite people, give them shares. And this is where you come in. The mission of Chatwise is that the benefit of shares are for everyone, not for few people sitting in those tall buildings in Manhattan. The problem we have is 80 to 90% of the people in those countries, India, Indonesia, don't understand shares. Any user over the next few weeks can have a 30-day streak and get 30 Chatwise shares. Every share with full rights, ordinary shares. And every user can invite 10 friends with their personalized referral code and get 20 more shares. So 50 shares anybody can get. We've set aside 15 billion shares, 60% of the company in a trust fund. The purpose of doing that was to gain the trust, secure them separately. We think we're going to be doing 2 more funding rounds before the 3rd round. We feel will be an IPO to when these share value really will be realized. We want you to be part of the story and we want you to be on the table. You don't change the world by sitting there making reels. You change the world by being on the table, and we want you to be part of us. Come and join us. Change the world.